Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Uranus at 29 degrees in astrology. 29 degrees in astrology, otherwise known as the anaretic degree. Now, someone that has this in their natal chart may have a supreme need for freedom and independence. The person may be really have an excessive need for freedom and independence, a downright insatiable need for that, perhaps. This could also be a person that may have very distorted and intensified need to be unique, eccentric, perhaps. There could also be an exceptionally non-conforming nature and one that has a strong desire to be very unorthodox. Now, 29 degrees in astrology, of course, could be crisis, upheaval, ridden, and oriented. This could be the person that may go through perpetual crisis over freedom and independence issues. It might even be associated with rebellion. It might even be issues with friendships as well that could be in that perpetual crisis mode. Now, 29 degrees in astrology can also be associated with ambivalence and indecision. This could be a person that might go through a lot of consistent indecisiveness and indecision regarding their friends, matters of freedom and independence. It could be over expressing one's uniqueness. It could be over having some kind of utopian or bizarre or unorthodox viewpoints and outlook. Sometimes it could be shocking behavior. Now, the person might actually be notorious for shocking behavior that has this placement depending on aspects. Now, this could be a person that might not ever be able to express themselves, their innovative side enough, or maybe their eccentricities enough and their uniqueness enough. It could be somebody that could be that perpetual innovator, that person that might be constantly very enamored and infatuated with new ideas and concepts. Now, there may be issues also perhaps with the ankles or shins, and even maybe perhaps it could be a propensity for shock sensations and maybe some kind of nerve damage. I mean, well, what I want to say is that there could be greater propensity for electric shock as well, because Uranus is connected with electricity and ankles and shins. Now, the thing about it is if somebody has this placement, perhaps extra precautions may be needed if one does work connected with electricity. And I want to say, going back to the issues as far as possible physical issues associated with Uranus at 29 degrees, they could be especially true if you have other indicators in the chart that may reaffirm or reinforce this, such as having Uranus in the 6th house, maybe especially in conjunct the ascendant, or Uranus in the 1st house and or conjunct the ascendant, Aquarius on the 6th house cusp. Those are some things where you can look at where you might actually have some physical issues in some cases associated with this energy. Now, another thing too, this could also be there might be tremendous idiosyncratic behavior with Uranus at 29 degrees in a natal chart. Now, as 29 degrees, I think, can be paradoxical. In some cases, you might have some vacillation and distortion of the energy. Now, it could be somebody that has such a tremendous need or to express ingenuity and uniqueness, and what happens is it gets to a point where it's being expressed so much that a person might just become zapped, maybe that way in a sense, and maybe have to go stagnant in the ingenuity department, so to speak, for a while, and they might be going back to being overly maybe conventional or orthodox for a protracted period of time, perhaps for that reason. It could also be a person that may have a really excessive need for friendships, can't get enough friends, but what happens is after a certain point of time, even too much of a good thing may become monotonous, and the person might need that time to be by his or herself for a prolonged or protracted period due to being inundated with friendships for such a long period of time. So that's, I think, how that works. So anyway, Well, another thing too is that this could also be a person that might have to deal with excessive madness, mayhem, and even chaos in their life. Now, if you have now the sign that Uranus is in at 29 degrees can be significant, as well as this could impact the delineation and interpretation. Now, let's say somebody that is at has Uranus at 29 degrees Scorpio in their chart. They might not be able to express enough unique ideas that are associated with the occult, supernatural, and astrological matters, or maybe even enough unique methods of transformation, or even having new ideas associated with perhaps investigation and forensics. Perhaps there's some kind of unusual, unique sexuality that they may show, something where maybe they could exhibit some kind of sexuality, but maybe not in the traditional Orthodox or conventional sense. I believe Serena Williams has Uranus at Uranus in Scorpio, but not at 29 not at 29 degrees. But still, could you imagine if she had it at 29 degrees? She is certainly somebody that shows sexuality in a new way, that you could actually have a very strong physique, a very robust, sturdy type strong appearance and countenance or what have you, and you could still perhaps exude certain sexuality in a process. I'm saying being a woman, I should say, and being able to show that kind of physique. So anyway, well, another thing is, as far as Uranus at 29 degrees, there could also be, in some cases, 29 degrees. Let's take another example. Somebody, Uranus with 29 degrees in Libra, maybe somebody that might have an exorbitant need for internet and relationships, and unusual relationships as well. There might be intensified rebellion as terms of conventional relationships. Now, the house that this falls in can be important, as well as this could impact the delineation and interpretation. Now, let's say, for example, someone has Uranus at 29 degrees in the 5th house in their natal chart. Now, this could be a person that might persistently deal with chaos and unpredictable behavior in one's love life and children. Could also be a person that might have a very strong, powerful, intensified need to have very unusual hobbies, or unorthodox hobbies, or something like bungee cord jumping, or going on a rocket, using a rocket jetpack, something that would be somewhat unusual, or maybe not many people may actually do so, and being very intensified at the 29th degree. Now, another thing, talk about one example that the late great legendary actor Vincent Price had his Uranus in Capricorn at 29 degrees conjunct his 12th house cusp. And I felt like this, I think for him, the way it may have manifested is bringing in perhaps this inordinate, eccentric, unique energy into filmography. And interestingly enough, Uranus in Capricorn. Capricorn can be associated with one's career. Could also show a very intensified and amplified need to have a very a career perhaps that was very non-conformant, something that was very unconventional, and really that almost like that rebellious energy from having that basically that traditional career. I think, given that Capricorn is the sign associated with that. So anyway, another thing as far as this goes, now aspects that are made to Uranus in 29 degrees can be important, as well as that could impact the interpretation and delineation. Now, with predominantly positive aspects, the person may show very strong innovative, ingenious qualities, very strong reforming urge. It could perhaps express in a positive way, of course, and might attract an abundance of friendships as well, maybe be that prototypical humanitarian. Now, let's say, however, If mainly adverse aspects are made to Uranus at the 29th degree, the person may be extremely rebellious, and person may exhibit excessive, constant, idiosyncratic, bizarre behavior, do shocking things, and really have an overwhelming need perhaps to cause chaos in others' lives and do unpredictable, outlandish things that might be to others' detriments. Now, specific aspects can be important as well, as this could impact the delineation. Now, let's say, for example, that someone has Uranus at 29 degrees and it makes a sextile or trine to their natal Venus. Now, this could be very auspicious, say, for making money using exceptional, tremendous, innovative ability, or other Uranus-like works such as computers, electronics, aerospace, or rocket science. It could be somebody that might produce very original, it could be computer, graphics, art design, perhaps as another example. Now, hold on a minute, people. Sorry about that. Now let's take another example. Let's say someone has Uranus at 29 degrees and it makes an adverse aspect to Jupiter. Well, this person might show very intensified, amplified, strong iconoclastic behavior. Let's say it makes an adverse aspect to one's Saturn in their chart. This could be someone with an exceptionally non-conforming nature might be opposed by authority figures or even the father. And it could be where obviously that can cause some issues, or maybe an exceptionally rebellious behavior, maybe adversarial as far as authority figures and or the father may go. So anyway, now perhaps in predictive astrology, Uranus at 29 degrees may signify the end of a friendship. It could be the completion of some kind of innovative project, a humanitarian endeavor, something that was maybe done with a friend perhaps, or even maybe it's something connected with one's independence or freedom may come to an end at this point in time. Now, let's say if it falls, a transit Uranus at 29 degrees falls in one's 12th house in their natal chart, it could be perhaps the conclusion or culmination of a bizarre or unusual clandestine affair, or the end of a Uranus-like project that may have been done in solitude or seclusion. Well, the one thing I want to get back at, I got to be kind of rewind momentarily, people. There's another example I wanted to use as far as Uranus at 29 degrees in the chart. Now, prolific NFL quarterback Matthew Stafford, he has Uranus at 29 degrees Sagittarius in his chart. Now, he is somebody I believe that may show certain very strong, amplified, unconventional, unorthodox energy in the sport that he is in, which of course is football, and Sagittarius can be associated with sports. The fact that he could be somewhat daring and audacious, and also can throw from a wide divergence of angles when he's throwing. I think it's a lot of that. I mean, he is an Aquarius as well. So, I mean, there are other things that can kind of support this anyway. He does have a very, he is very strongly, I'm sure, is very unconventional. It's kind of like, well, you know what, I'm doing this my way, whether you like it or not. And I think he really exemplifies that energy. And having Uranus at 29 degrees in Sagittarius definitely plays a very strong role in that with him. So anyway, 29 degrees Sagittarius, I should say. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Uranus at 29 degrees in astrology. And stay tuned next time, where I'm going to be talking about Neptune at 29 degrees in astrology. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.